So now that we've taken a look at all the tech tree tier 10s and which ones I think are worth grinding out in 2023, well, let's take a look at some of the premiums, specifically the steel ships today. This is a very popular category to ask about because it's a very difficult resource to get. Steel is still quite rare in the game, although they have been adding a few new ways to get it. That's not just clan battles. So today we're going to take a look at these steel ships. I haven't actually got to the premiums in my one take series, but most of the ships on here I have made quite a few videos about since they are some of the better ships in the game and I really do enjoy playing most of these ships. There's a few that aren't very good though, so keep that in mind. But definitely check out on the channel for some of these ships if you're interested in some more live gameplay. Here we're just talking about if I think they're worth picking up. And to start with, there are actually two ships that I haven't played that are available for steel. That is the Plymouth and the FDR. The reason I don't have these two ships and I haven't played them yet is pretty simple for both of them. Plymouth I don't think is very good just from an outside perspective. I don't really want to spend my steel on it. It's a Minotaur with radar and smoke, but you lose so much DPM. Although you have a lot of alpha now because you have so many of those 150mm guns. I just don't want to spend my steel on this ship. That's why I haven't played it yet. I know some people have it and probably enjoy playing it. Personally though, not really interested. Although keep in mind, this is not a very informed opinion. This is just the reason why I haven't picked it up myself. And FDR, of course, is because I'm not a CV main. I haven't been playing that many CVs, even since I've started to dabble in it a little bit to try and learn how to counter them a little bit better. I don't really want to spend my steel on the FDR, although it's a very, very, very strong CV. Plays very differently, though, considering it has these long cooldowns between strikes, big, giant strike squads that are very, very tanky, but quite slow. It's a weird ship to play. If you're interested in the FDR, you're probably not here for my opinion on it, though, that's for sure. So those are the two that I haven't played. Now to the ships that I feel like I can actually give a reasonable take on. To start with, the Shikishima. This is the tier 10 Yamato alternate, and I think for that reason, it's just a B tier steel ship. I think it's reasonably strong. Your reload's pretty quick, but unfortunately you only have 6 guns, and if you've seen my videos, you probably know how I feel about 6-gun battleships. Really not a fan of them at all. They feel very inconsistent. So Shikishima, biggest guns in the game still, although Satsuma has the same guns, although you get one more turret there, and more gimmicks. The reason I don't really think Shikishima is worth picking up partially has to do with Satsuma being in the game now. You can just grind up through the Yamato and get a better version. But the other reason is that I think Yamato is just so good, and Shikishima is such a small difference that it's not really worth spending all this steel on a ship that's so similar to a tech tree ship. Although that said, it does have some advantages, like actually having reasonably good anti-aircraft fire, where Yamato certainly does not. And of course, the reload is actually pretty cool. It's a very, very fast reload for how big the guns are. I just find it a little too inconsistent and too similar a playstyle to Yamato to really recommend it. Next up, we got Stalingrad, the original steel ship in the game for clan battle flag rewards, for those of you that remember that. Pre-even steel being a resource in the game, you earned these clan battle flags, one for each season you played, and once you had 3, you could exchange those 3 flags for a Stalingrad. Before they came up with steel, which is honestly probably a better way of doing things, especially with the addition of multiple steel ships as a reward. Stalingrad has been one of the strongest ships in the game and continues to be. However, I think in recent times, considering some of the nerfs that it's experienced to its radar, and more importantly to its tankiness, the big issue here is you can no longer take fire prevention, which means that you can't reduce the number of fires that are actually burning on your ship down to 3. You're stuck with 4, and that makes this ship a lot easier to take down. It doesn't help that this is one of the more vulnerable ships when broadside. A lot of ships these days tend to have waterline, below waterline citadels, spaced armor, all these things to make them a little bit less likely to get destroyed if they go broadside. Stalingrad is from an era where we still had very, very vulnerable citadels. So keep that in mind. It is a ship that will die quickly to broadside, and it's a ship that can die reasonably fast to HE spam. The AA, while decent, isn't really enough to deal with modern carriers, and so it's not really quite an S tier for me. That said, though, the guns are absolutely amazing. They are really, really fast shell velocity, great dispersion, they have improved pen angles, and they hit really, really hard. So a very, very strong ship still, don't get me wrong. 12-kilometer radar as well, but I can't quite put it in S tier. Now, the Vallejo, I don't actually have that much experience in, but this is a ship that I did make a video on when it was released. It's a tier 9 Worcester-ish type of ship where you have a little better shell velocity out to range, but you no longer have a radar and you have a worse reload. So it's a farming ship. It doesn't have the battle impact of a Worcester. And I didn't really like it because of that. I found that it was very difficult to carry a lot of games. And considering it's a light cruiser, it's kind of difficult to have that open water farming role where you want to be open water, having people shooting at you. That way they stay spotted and you're actually able to shoot back. Something like the Henry, Condé, these kinds of things are really good examples of that. But there's other heavy cruisers that can definitely do that role as well. Finding islands to shoot over can be a little more difficult now that your shell velocity is a little bit better, so you have to find this balance point, and it's difficult to play. Tier 9 also isn't the best at the moment, considering a lot of your matches are now up-tiered into super ships. You're no longer the blessed tier where you only have +1 and then -2 matchmaker, so I don't really recommend the Vallejo. Even though it's probably the cheapest option here for steel, I think you should definitely save a little longer and get a better ship. Next up, we have Austin. This is a ship I didn't really know where to put because it's so unique. Having this infinitely reloading reload booster, you never run out of charges on it, is pretty hilarious. Sap shells are really strong. The torps are quite good here. You even have surprisingly good armor. I find Austin a lot of fun to play. It's a very gimmicky ship. No radar here, but combining your concealment with reasonable tankiness allows you to take these kind of punchy in and out hit and run style fights where when you have your reload booster available, you can almost out DPM anything. But when it's off cooldown, well, you have to worry a lot because the DPM takes a nosedive. It's a weird ship to play. I find it fun, but I don't know if it's actually all that amazing. It's certainly not easy to play. And because of that, I think it's a very interesting pickup if you've got a few steel ships already, or you're looking for a very unique experience out of a steel ship. Up next, we have Mecklenburg, which, again, I'm going to put in A tier. I think the one downside here of a German battleship being the giant superstructure is still here, although Mecklenburg has very accurate guns. 16 small caliber guns, but they're quite accurate. They reload pretty quickly. And this ship can deal a ton of damage very, very, very quickly. I find the Mecklenburg, the more I play it, the actually more I enjoy it. I didn't really like it at first, mostly because I was trying to play it like a GK or a standard German battleship, but it doesn't actually have the HP pool. It's got a nerfed down HP pool, so you have to play it a little different, but playing it a little bit more like, say, well, a Bourgogne. We're going to get to that ship yet, but it's very, very powerful. The more I play it, the more I like it. It's a very solid option as a German battleship. You can't really full spec secondaries and go in and brawl like that in random battles, but if it's ranked, this is something I haven't really talked about on these lists, but ranked, a lot of these mid to close range brawlers get much, much better. So if you're looking for a ship for that, Mecklenburg's a really, really solid option. But I wouldn't pick this as my first battleship on the steel list, and we'll get to that. And probably not very surprisingly, Incomparable goes in C tier for me. I know there's going to be a lot of you that actually enjoy the Incomparable a lot, but I had an awful time playing this ship. Anytime I take it out, I just struggle to do damage. Even though the guns are huge and they have crazy high alpha, the ship is fast, it can flank really, really well with its good concealment, it can sneak up on cruisers. I think it has a better concealment than a Des Moines even, like insane stuff. But 6 guns is just so painful for me. I had a very, very difficult time playing this ship. So I can't really recommend it based on my experiences, but if you're someone who's okay with these 6-gun battleships, maybe you just get better RNG than I do. I definitely think that can be the case sometimes. Or you're not as worried about RNG. I seem to get tilted very quickly over RNG. If you're more a laid back person than I seem to be able to be in this video game, Incomparable's not bad. It's a box full of gimmicks. I just don't really enjoy playing it myself. So for me, it goes in C tier. Ragnar being the only DD available for steel, I'm going to put in B tier. I think this is a very difficult destroyer to play well. Having a radar here makes it extremely strong as a cap contester, but you don't have the concealment of the previous pan-European concealment plus radar ship, the Småland. That ship was taken out of the game for purchase. You can still play it if you still have it. Personally, I find Småland to be much stronger than Ragnar. You retain your torpedoes, which is nice, and I love having the better concealment. Ragnar, however, has bigger caliber guns, and it has way more armor and way more health. So it's a ship that can trade a lot better than a Småland can. And that armor is enough to actually shatter a lot of DD shells, which is pretty cool. Ragnar is also gaining those 150 millimeter guns. You can take longer range engagements with cruisers. Thanks to the better shell velocity and insane accuracy here, you're a pretty good farming ship from range as well. But personally, I enjoy the Småland more. Maybe that's just ruined me for Ragnar, so that's why I have it in B tier. If you haven't ever played Småland before, this is probably going to feel a lot better than it does to me, for example. It's a really, really strong ship. I just think that it being a little bit clumsier, less concealment, less stealthy compared to the Småland brings it down from A tier down to B tier for me. And I'm sure all of you knew where this ship was going. The Bourgogne is S tier for me, and it's really the only one in S tier. This is just the best ship you can get for steel. I don't think there's really much else to say about the Bourgogne. I've made a ton of videos on this ship over the years, and it's just still extremely powerful. This ship has really, really insane firepower. Reload booster on pretty accurate 12 380 millimeter guns is just ridiculous. It's extremely fast and maneuverable. The concealment is quite good. You don't really have to worry about carriers too much as well, thanks to that extra maneuverability, combined with actually decent AA. I find that the Bourgogne is a ship I can play anywhere on the map and do well. I think it's still the highest average damage ship that I've played, and I always have a really fun time in the Bourgogne. It doesn't really matter where I end up on a map. It doesn't really matter the map either. This ship is great at long range. It's good at mid range. It can even do solidly well at closer ranges thanks to that reload booster. The AP hits really hard. If you're facing bow-on battleships, you can just swap over to the HE and you're suddenly one of the best battleships for burning down other battleships. It's ridiculously flexible and extremely strong in all scenarios. If you're thinking about getting a steel ship and you're okay with battleships or you just enjoy battleships, Bourgogne has to be your first pickup. It's just that good. So that's all for the currently available steel ships. This is my list for late 2022. Going into 2023, I think these are the ships you should be going for. Bourgogne, Stalingrad, Mecklenburg, Austin, Ragnar. Those are the ones that I would definitely be keeping an eye out for, depending on your playstyle. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'd love to know what your favorite steel ship is, which one you would recommend to other people. But other than that, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you have a great holiday season with your family, and Merry Christmas, everyone.